What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. There are huge updates to the policy documents from how tournaments are going to be ran and what you can and can't do there, and also a huge ruling update that is going to change how very iconic cards have worked within Yu-Gi-Oh! So let's go ahead and get into it, stating that 2019 really seems to be Konami's year for making me a happy guy. This puts a huge smile on my face, and we're talking about the first ever policy update to hygiene. This is not a joke. This is not an April Fool's. This is the official KDE Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game Tournament policy. So let's go ahead and read it. Hygiene. You are expected to be clean when you enter a tournament. Neglecting to wash or put on clean clothes contributes to an unpleasant atmosphere at the event, as the tournament can be crowded and the day can be long. Persons who neglect self-care to the point that they are negatively impacting the tournament may be asked to correct the issue in order to continue in the event. In other words, wash your ass or leave! This is awesome. We've seen this in many nerd communities. Smash Brothers, our own, Pokemon, even to where Pokemon, I believe, has updated their policy documents about it. And after 20 years, finally, Konami addresses the issue. We have seen memes from Team APS and myself actually get quite a bit of traction on Twitter and jokes on YouTube. We've seen on Zodiac very liked post about this issue, and Reddit trending topics that get a lot of upvotes as well. So it's awesome to see Konami see all this criticism from the community, right? Actually pay attention to it and update an official policy document looking at how these people that aren't bothering to shower, you can afford an $800 deck for YCS, you can afford some deodorant, you know what I'm saying? Looking at this policy issue and saying, alright, let's actually address this. Let's actually make something about this. So Konami, I'm glad you're not scared to offend those who are offending us. I'm really happy that you are taking this step forward. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation. The huge talk of what is happening, and that's new rulings. I'm no MSTTV, but Konami makes this easy enough to understand in a policy update. Card/hand/deck verification. With the exception of cards selected by a search effect, you may not search or verify any of your opponent's private knowledge locations, such as hand, deck contents, or face-down cards, unless you are otherwise directed to, specifically by a card effect. You may not ask a judge to search or verify your opponent's hand, deck contents, or face-down cards unless there is a supportable evidence that your opponent may be cheating or there may be a valid deck-related issue. So a lot of people are concerned that this is going to end up causing cheating. I know judges already that don't like this policy update, but I see it from a player standpoint more than a judge standpoint. Players don't want to reveal unnecessary information unless a card specifically says that that advantage is given. And it's been more inferred, and it's been more like, okay, I get to verify so as not to call a judge. But here we just state the judge is not allowed to intervene unless there is reasonable reason, I guess, for you to say that your opponent is cheating. So a lot of people are scared that this will promote more cheating and more abuse of this rule. So let's get into examples. Both duelists are playing with the same color and type of sleeves. Duelist A notices that his deck total count is short one card, while Duelist B's total deck count is over one card. A judge should be contacted to help the situation. That one's pretty obvious. The second one is where it starts to get crazy. Duelist activates the effect of Mystic Tomato. Upon searching his deck, he realized that he does not have a legal card to special summon. His opponent does not search the main deck to verify. So the issue people have here is that many times people will say something like, oh, I don't have a target, in order to stop a misplay. Let's say they've activated an effect to go ahead and search their deck and summon something, and they realize it would be better to do this later in the turn because it has a restriction, such as maybe with an Orcust card, right? And they realize they have other plays to make first, and they're going to maybe somehow avoid this. Like, they don't want to activate it right now, and they're like, oh, currently there's none, and they're going to find a way to shuffle them back or do something to that means, and people are scared this is going to start happening to them, right? And that's pretty valid. So I think it's a common enough situation to where a player will misplay and they'll try to stop their misplay, and the player will want to verify, oh, you're not making a misplay, let me see. Now, this gives away information. It gives away text in the deck, should they be honest. It gives away specific things about what's left in their deck, so you can infer what is in their hand. And that is where a duelist doesn't want to give away, oh, I've drawn my Ash Blossom, I've drawn my Dronelock, there's 2 in the deck, it's obvious that I'd probably play 3. So it's trying to protect the player, but at the cost also that players can abuse the rule, and you have to catch them at it. It's the good old adage of maybe setting an Infernity Archfiend in the back row / a monster in the back row so you can start popping off with Infernities. You get the card out of your hand. I remember very famous situations of activating MST and somebody scooping when a back row is suspiciously hit. Oh man. So Duelist A activates the search effect of Bailing, searches their deck for a Sanctuary, then shows it to her opponent before adding to hand. Let's get into the second part of this conversation. Mind Crush. A Duelist activates Mind Crush and declares Effect Failure. Duelist B says he does not have an Effect Failure in her hand. Duelist A does not get to see Duelist B's hand to verify. Used to, you could check the hand to verify other copies were not in there, let alone the original Effect Failure. Duelist A cannot call a judge to verify Duelist B's hand unless there is supportable evidence that your opponent may be cheating or that they may be a valid deck-related issue. So then the other example of supported proof is Duelist A activates Pot of Duality and adds a revealed Effect Veiler to her hand. The game continues for several turns and Duelist A does not use Effect Veiler. Duelist B activates a Mind Crush and declares Effect Veiler. Duelist A states that there is no Effect Veiler in her hand. Duelist B knows that Effect Veiler was added to Duelist A's hand and knows it has not been played. It is acceptable to call a judge and investigate. So it's like, only if game knowledge has led you to the point of calling a judge to verify should you call a judge. This is because judges are needed for rulings, they're needed to go around places, and they can't just be used for suspicion of, well, my opponent could be lying, is basically what this comes down to. Again, I see where it comes from. It's to protect players' knowledge and not really let it be abused to try to figure out what's in the hand and that kind of stuff. I still think this will end up getting abused. It is unfortunate, of course, later in the tournaments as there's more watchers around tables. It's way more avoidable, but at the same time, this just doesn't feel right to me. I feel like you should be able to verify. What's your thoughts in the comment section down below on this one? For another example, Lullaby of Obedience, right? Lullaby of Obedience reads that you pay 2,000 life points to declare a monster card name. Your opponent looks at their deck, reveals one of the declared monster, if there is any, and applies one of these effects. So basically your opponent could say something like, oh, I cited those out. Or something like they've activated a Desires, oh, they all got banished, and if they end up drawing it, not playing it, so it's just to make your opponent lose the advantage. That's another thing that could happen, but man, it is what it is. We had that famous Worlds moment, right, where the Inspector Borders really did get banished, you know? It does create tension among duelists, especially around playing these kinds of cards, so you might see the potential use of stuff like Mind Crush and Lullaby of Obedience really tend to be less played because it doesn't give the information, because it doesn't allow this sort of thing. And the final policy update is to sleeves. So a lot of people use those Imperium Duelist holographic front sleeves, and this is directly now in the policy documents that you may not use sleeves with a holographic front. Sleeves with a holographic front are not allowed. Sleeves with design and the artwork on the front are not allowed. This outright gets rid of those sleeves. They did look pretty awesome. I've also heard back and forth on the quality of them, but apparently they caused seizures into duelists. Now, if a holographic card doesn't cause it, but a holographic front does, it's a little confusing to me. Maybe the plastic is more reflective of light than holofoil. It's just a weird thing, but yeah, it could distort how cards are read. It could there's so much text on a card and you're trying to focus in on text and it's usually not holographic. I could kind of see it with how small text is. It's just a weird update, and you should be aware that the Imperium Duelist series of sleeves here is no longer allowed for use in an official tournament, and this is in the policy. Also, if there's art on the back, a head judge will decide whether or not the artwork on the back of the sleeves is offensive. okay, that's good, right? Like, what's distracting, offensive, that sort of thing. But this is just a huge thing that you should know is make sure you're using tournament legal sleeves. Make sure your sleeves are okay for use. Always check with the head judge. This includes the extra deck, so you can't bling out your extra deck and stuff like this. This is sleeves for everything, the deck, extra deck, all of it. So if you want to use those sleeves, they have to be outside regulation tournaments. Thank you so much for watching. What did you guys think of the policy updates? Do you think you can trust your fellow duelists? Do you think that we should still be allowed to verify? I'm on the side of verification, but at the same time, I also do think it creates an interesting dynamic of hiding what's in your hand, them looking through your deck and trying to confirm, more so than, hey, do you have this card? Or are they really looking for the what's in your hand? And taking that away, I think that's the purpose of it, I would assume. Thank you again. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the discussion, and let me know what you think. I'm no MSTTV, but I think Konami did a perfectly fine job of explaining this all themselves.